Hi, this is the video for Daf Shevui Masechet Megillah, Daf Kavav, page 26 of Tractate Megillah. There's a Braita that appears on Kavav Amud Bet, the second page of this Daf, that is very practical. So I wanted to teach a little halacha, practical halacha that I know everybody likes to talk about, related to this Braita. So the Braita says, Tashmishei mitzvah, things, articles used in the performance of a mitzvah, nizrakin, can simply be thrown away. Whereas Tashmishei Kedusha, articles used in the performance of a commandment, have to be nignazin, have to be put in the geniza, buried, and there's a long sugya about burying them, various ways of burying them. The distinction between Tashmishei Mitzvah and Tashmishei Kedusha is fairly straightforward. Tashmishei Mitzvah are anything that we use in performance to aid us in performing a mitzvah, where that article is inherent to the performance of that mitzvah. And the examples are sukkah. You can't perform the mitzvah of a sukkah without a sukkah. Lulav, shofar, and tzitzit. Now, all of those are simply articles that do not have any kedusha to them, even though they are usable or they're used in the performance of a mitzvah. And very clearly we can see that Tashmishei Kedusha is anything that has any bearing or relationship on scrolls on which portions of the Tanakh are written. So that would include bags in which you keep Sifrei Torah, tefillin, mezuzot, and any other thing that is used to hold the tefillin, and also the ritzuot, the straps for the tefillin. But I don't want to talk about the kedusha issue. I want to talk about the mitzvah thing. What do you do with your sukkah, your lulav, your shofar, or tzitzit when they are worn out? So the Shulchan Aruch says quite simply about tzitzit, chutei tzitzit, strings of tzitzit that have fallen off, he can throw them into the garbage because they're mitzvah, because they are mitzvah, and there's nothing inherently holy about them. This is, by the way, in Orach Chaim, Siman Kaf Aleph, 21, chapter 21 of Orach Chaim, the section of the Shulchan Aruch that deals with ritual mitzvot for the most part. As long as they're still on your talit, you can't use them, for instance, to tie anything else with them or to use them to tie something up, because that would be a disgrace to the mitzvah, what's called bizui mitzvah. But again, to the Shulchan Aruch, to Rav Yosef Karo himself, once they are no longer usable in the performance of a mitzvah, they can be just simply thrown into the trash. However, the Ramah, the Ashkenazi commentator on the Shulchan Aruch, Reb Moshe Esheles, says, V'yesh omrim, there are those who say that even after they've fallen off of your tzitzit, the tzitzit strings, you shouldn't act with them so despicably to throw them into the garbage or some kind of disgraceful place. But they do not need to be put into the geniza, and there are even some people who put them into the geniza. Somebody who is stringent and is especially cautious in the performance of the commandments is to be blessed. And the Mishnah Berurah says the same thing is true with the schach and the lulav and the shofar. You don't just simply throw them into the trash. Rather, you should try to treat them in as respectful way as possible. And there's another perush that says the same is true even for the walls of the sukkah. However, the Mishnah Berurah goes on to say, look, if you put them somewhere and then they get thrown away, after all, the walls, the schach, these are large objects that you can't just keep all the time. If you put them somewhere and then they get caught up into the trash, that's okay. The Shulchan Aruch goes on to talk about the talit itself, right? Not the tzitziot, but the talit. Talitot shel mitzvah shebaru, the talit that wore out. Adam bodel atzmo mehem, a person should separate from them, but he shouldn't use them to clean himself, and they shouldn't be set aside for any other kind of disgraceful use. Rather, he can throw them away, and they'll sort of wear out on their own. And again, about this case, right? Whereas the Mishnah Berurah had said you shouldn't throw your tzitziot into the ashba. He says there are even the people who say you shouldn't throw the tzitziot into the ashba, into the trash, say that you can with the talit, because the talit isn't really even the mitzvah. The talit is just something on which the mitzvah of the tzitzit were once hung, and therefore, while you shouldn't use it for a disgraceful purpose, there is no inherent holiness whatsoever in it, and you could throw it into the trash can.